Today we've got 3 sleeper running backs that I think could potentially help you win your fantasy league this year. This is the Prophet Podcast. Welcome to the Prophet Podcast, everything NFL and fantasy football related all season long, with your host, Calvin Wright. So the first running back that really stands out to me is Zack Moss. Zack Moss was one of my favorite, maybe my favorite running back prospects in this year's draft, and he went to a situation that is not exciting for fantasy football. He's in Buffalo where they already have Devin Singletary. And at first glance, that's a nightmarish situation. He's not going to do much. But I want to remember last year when Singletary was there, Frank Gore got a lot of the red zone touches, but he also got a lot of carries. He was involved. They involved other running backs there with Singletary. Now, I do think Singletary is going to definitely be the main running back in Buffalo. I think he's cemented himself as the RB1. But we saw Devin Singletary go down last year due to injury. And if that happens again, Zack Moss, he could be an RB1. He has that type of athleticism. He fits that role really well. I think if anything happens to Singletary, Zack Moss is an RB1, not just because of talent, but the Buffalo situation. They're a run-heavy, run-first team. And that's why I think Zack Moss, you could say, he's a handcuff, but he, unlike a lot of other handcuffs, I think he actually does provide standalone value in a run-heavy, run-first offense. So Zack Moss, he's going in the 12th round currently, and I think, if Singletary stays healthy, I think Zack Moss is still worth that 12th round pick. If anything happens to Singletary, Zack Moss could be a league winner. The next running back I'm going to be talking about is A.J. Dillon. Now, A.J. Dillon definitely a headline pick when the Packers selected another running back, even though they have Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones, the touchdown leader, last year. A lot of people were extremely confused. I wasn't exactly surprised. I was a little, miffed that they did that. But I remember last year even, Matt LaFleur said they wanted to get a third running back in the backfield. Now, I did like A.J. Dillon, drew comparisons to Derrick Henry, which obviously is exciting. But a lot of people are now just kind of ignoring A.J. Dillon because, Aaron Jones is there and Jamal Williams. And you see 3 running backs and you go, too many mouths to feed. But A.J. Dillon was drafted for a reason. They spent an early draft pick on him. A.J. Dillon is going to be used. He will be. I think he's going to be used a lot as a, hammer it down their throat guy late in the fourth quarter. I think he's going to be used on the goal line a lot. I mean, remember that year where LeGarrette Blount had, 18 touchdowns? It was a great fantasy running back, and I think we could see a season like that from Dillon. I don't think Dillon's going to have 1,000 yards. I mean, 600 probably. That's what I'm thinking for Dillon right now, 600 yards probably, all purpose. But I think he could have, 9 touchdowns or so. I think he will get a lot of goal line work. And if anything happens to Aaron Jones or Jamal Williams, A.J. Dillon gets a huge boost. And it's not like, if they go down with injury, because we can say that about every player, but both Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams have a history of getting hurt, have a history of being banged up or missing significant amount of time. So A.J. Dillon has standalone value. He has standalone value, especially I think he will be used a lot on the goal line. But if anything happens to one of those running backs, kind of like with Zack Moss and Devin Singletary, A.J. Dillon will be in for a huge, huge season. All right, I know what I said at the beginning that I was talking about late rounds, but I feel like I have to bring up this player. And I'm going to be doing a lot of videos actually just specifically about this player because I think, people need to know about him because I think a lot of people have just kind of forgotten he existed. But J.K. Dobbins, situation on paper doesn't look great. He's in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson's a running back, but Mark Ingram is there. They've also got Justice Hill, and a lot of people, it doesn't look like a great situation on paper. There's so many mouths to feed as a runner. But I want to think for a second, has there ever been a time when we see Mark Ingram as a veteran with a young, talented rookie behind him? That rookie is kind of ignored, forgotten, not really talked about, goes pretty late in fantasy drafts. No one cares about him. And then week 4 comes, and he's everywhere. He's in the news. He's, the top free agent acquisition, and he wins Rookie of the Year. Yeah, I'm not saying J.K. Dobbins is the next Kamara, but J.K. Dobbins, although the situation doesn't look amazing, I think is in a situation to succeed. I believe Lamar Jackson, or at least the coaching staff, wants to progress Lamar Jackson's passing ability. I think the goal is for Lamar Jackson to eventually be a pocket passer. It's what they wanted for RG3, or what RG3 wanted. The coaches didn't. But that's what we see with most of these mobile running quarterbacks. They eventually become pocket passers if they are to succeed. And J.K. Dobbins was drafted for a reason. Teams don't draft players, especially pretty early in drafts, when they don't intend on using them. Mark Ingram is old, and yes, will be there, but the way I'm seeing it, for fantasy football, I think J.K. Dobbins is the one. Ingram's the two. It may not be that way on the depth chart. It may not be that way week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, but the whole season as a whole, 16 weeks, Dobbins is going to be the RB1. Dobbins will be the RB1 in Baltimore. Great offensive line. A quarterback who can freeze linebackers. J.K. Dobbins has massive potential. Massive potential. I'm not just saying, he could be a good player if things go right. I'm saying if things don't go perfectly for Dobbins in this situation like I'm hoping they will, I think he still has standalone value in fantasy. I think he's still a good pick. But if things do go right, let's say things go perfectly, I'm not just saying Dobbins could be an RB1. I think Dobbins could be the RB1. There aren't many players where I can truthfully say if the situation goes the way I want it to go, they could be the RB1 overall, every running back. There aren't many players where I can honestly say I believe that, but I do for Dobbins. I think the situation is golden, and it could become platinum if things go right. I'm not saying they will. I don't actually believe they will go the way I hope they do. I think Dobbins and Ingram split a lot of the workload, but I think throughout the season, Dobbins becomes the RB1. Dobbins is the future of the run game in Baltimore. It's a run-heavy, run-first team. I want every piece of J.K. Dobbins I can get in fantasy. Right now, he's going 7th round, 7th, 8th round. I think we could see him fall later. I think we could see his ADP rise. I don't care exactly where he's going. I want J.K. Dobbins because the floor is pretty high, in my opinion, especially with a lower draft capital, and the ceiling is unlimited.